Have you ever noticed that some of the kindest people you know are also the most exhausted? They are the ones who always show up, the ones who greet the world with a persistent smile, and the ones who reflexively say yes the moment you ask for a favor. Yet, if you look closely, if you truly pay attention, you can spot a profound, lingering fatigue in their eyes. You can sense that behind that gentle exterior lies something deeper, heavier, and perhaps even a bit darker. We are conditioned to view kindness as an uncomplicated, singular good. We teach our children to be kind, and we hold up kindness as the hallmark of true leadership. We tend to measure our own worth by the depth of the compassion we offer others. But kindness, like every other virtue in this complex existence, casts a shadow. When we choose to ignore that shadow or pretend it doesn't exist, even the most well-intentioned kindness can transform into something destructive. It often starts in childhood. A child learns that being good and agreeable is the fastest way to earn affection. When they sacrifice their own needs to ensure the comfort of others, they are rewarded with smiles, praise, and the validation they might not have received otherwise. Over time, this link between self-denial and worthiness becomes deeply ingrained in their nervous system. Kindness stops being a choice and starts being a survival mechanism. As they grow older, they struggle to distinguish who they truly are from the version of themselves that others expect to see. They become the reliable one, the friend who never complains, the person who never breaks. But here is the hard truth. When kindness is coerced, driven by a fear of rejection or a desperate need to feel valuable, it is no longer pure, it becomes a mask. And when a mask is worn for too long, it begins to suffocate the person beneath it. Think about those in your own life who are endlessly kind. They will listen to your problems for hours. They will show up to help you move. They will lend you money they cannot afford to lose. They will sacrifice their own sleep just to ensure your peace of mind. At first, this behavior seems saintly, but if you have ever lived this role, you know the reality. Behind every act of extreme self-sacrifice lies a silent, simmering resentment. A small voice whispers, "What about me?" But that voice is quickly silenced because chronic kindness comes with a cruel, unspoken rule. You are not permitted to put yourself first. Psychologists call this compassion fatigue. It occurs when someone gives so much of their empathy and emotional energy that they eventually run dry. While we often associate this with healthcare workers or teachers, it is a risk for anyone who identifies as a kind soul. Studies consistently show that people who prioritize others at the expense of their own well-being report higher levels of anxiety, depression, and physical illness compared to those who maintain healthy boundaries. Unchecked, kindness becomes a form of self-erasure. It is like watering every plant in the garden while neglecting your own roots. Eventually, the gardener collapses and the entire garden withers with them. Perhaps most unsettling is the way kindness can turn into a weapon, not necessarily through malicious intent, but in a quiet, unconscious way. When you are labeled as the kind one, people come to rely on it. They orient their entire lives around your availability. Without realizing it, you train the world to treat your needs as secondary and your feelings as negotiable. Eventually, people stop asking what you want entirely, assuming you will always bend to accommodate them. You are effectively training the world to overlook you. This creates a cruel paradox. The kinder you become, the more invisible you feel. And invisibility is not peace, it is loneliness dressed up in the costume of politeness. None of this is to say that kindness is inherently bad. Genuine kindness is one of the most beautiful forces on earth. However, there is a stark difference between kindness that flows from a place of abundance and kindness that bleeds from a place of emptiness. One heals, while the other corrodes. One is born from love, the other from fear. Research published in the Times Journal of Personality and Social Psychology Times reveals that people who struggle to say no, often those who pride themselves on being agreeable, are significantly more prone to burnout. Another study from the University of California, Berkeley, found that altruism only boosts well-being when it is voluntary and authentic. When kindness is performed out of guilt or obligation, it does the exact opposite, spiking stress levels and lowering overall happiness. Yet, many of us remain trapped in this cycle. We fear disappointing others, so we keep saying yes. We fear being labeled as selfish, so we keep giving until we have nothing left. We fear losing love, so we keep sacrificing our core self. But the cost of this endless kindness is staggering. You eventually lose sight of who you are because your identity has been entirely constructed around serving others. You become a stranger in your own skin. And this is where the monster within emerges. When you suppress your needs, deny your anger, and dismantle your boundaries in the name of kindness, those emotions do not simply vanish. They collect in the shadows. They ferment. Eventually, they erupt in ways you cannot control. Snapping at a loved one over something trivial, engaging in passive-aggressive behavior, or experiencing a total emotional breakdown after years of repression. We like to believe that kindness shields us from darkness, but the reality is that kindness without honesty creates the perfect breeding ground for it. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you smile when you are hurting, and every time you hide your truth to keep the peace, you are not being kind. You are abandoning yourself. And self-abandonment always carries a heavy price. Why do we do this? The answer is rooted in our culture. From a young age, many of us are conditioned to believe that our worth is synonymous with our compliance. We are taught that being agreeable is safer than being authentic, and that love is something earned through sacrifice rather than something given freely. But true kindness does not demand the erasure of the self. It includes the self. If your version of kindness is costing you your mental health, your joy, and your energy, it is no longer kindness. It is self-neglect disguised as a virtue. Neuroscience offers us a clue through the mirror neuron system. This is the biological mechanism that allows us to feel empathy. When you see someone in pain, your brain mirrors that experience. It is why we are wired for connection. However, these neurons do not distinguish between healthy empathy and destructive, boundaryless empathy. If you constantly expose yourself to the suffering of others without protection, your brain floods with stress signals. Over time, this leads to chronic stress, immune system failure, and profound exhaustion. Your brain is not built for limitless, boundaryless care. It is built for balanced, sustainable connection. The dark side of kindness is not that kindness is flawed, it is that it can be twisted by fear, cultural pressure, and unhealed wounds. It starts looking noble on the surface while it eats away at your vitality from the inside. When that happens, the very quality you considered your greatest strength becomes the thing that breaks you. If you recognize this cycle, the exhaustion, the resentment, the feeling of being invisible, know that you are not broken. You are simply reacting to a world that has failed to teach you how to balance giving with self-protection. The monster inside you isn't there because you are a bad person. It exists because unexpressed truths will always demand to be heard. So, how do we break the cycle? How do we embrace kindness without becoming martyrs? The answer begins with a simple, albeit uncomfortable, realization. Kindness must start with you. This isn't about being selfish. It's about recognizing that if your kindness doesn't include yourself, it isn't kindness at all. It's a performance. And performances are exhausting. Think of the oxygen mask analogy. You must secure your own mask before helping others. If you pass out from lack of air, you are useless to everyone around you. Boundaries are the key to this balance. For many, boundaries feel terrifying. They feel like rejection, selfishness, or a shutting out of the world. But in truth, boundaries are the purest form of honesty. A boundary says, this is what I can give, and this is what I cannot. It says, I care about you, but I cannot pour from an empty cup. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define where you end and another person begins. Without them, relationships blur into cycles of dependency and silent suffering. With them, relationships become clear, mutual, and grounded in genuine respect. Research shows that people with healthy boundaries actually enjoy deeper, more meaningful connections because their interactions are based on choice rather than compulsion. When you set a boundary, you become more trustworthy because when you say yes, people know you truly mean it. The challenge is that setting boundaries requires saying yes to yourself, even when it feels like you are betraying the identity you've spent your life cultivating. You might lose people along the way, people who were only comfortable with your endless compliance. That is painful, but it is necessary. Relationships built on the expectation of constant sacrifice were never balanced to begin with. In psychology, there is a concept called pathological altruism. This occurs when the desire to help causes actual harm, either to the giver or the receiver. It looks like kindness, but it fosters dependency, guilt, and burnout. It is kindness gone wrong. We must dismantle the cultural myth of the good person, the idea that being nice means never making demands or never disrupting the status quo. Real goodness is not about self-erasure. It is about showing up as your full, authentic self and still choosing compassion. When kindness comes from a place of authenticity, it liberates. When it comes from fear, it enslaves. So, how do you shift from enslaved kindness to liberated kindness? Here are 5 practices. 1. Practice the pause. When asked for a favor, do not say yes immediately. Breathe. Check in with your own capacity and values. A few seconds of reflection can save you from the trap of automatic people-pleasing. 2. The power of the gentle. No. A no does not have to be harsh. It can be kind and firm. I care about you, but I don't have the capacity to take this on right now, is a valid and honorable response. 3. Reframe your worth. Your value is intrinsic. You do not need to perform acts of kindness to justify your existence. You are worthy of love even when you are resting or saying no. 4. Tend your own garden. Invest in the things that nourish you, your friendships, your passions, your silence. When you live from a place of abundance, kindness becomes a gift rather than a transaction. 5. Listen to your emotions. Anger, frustration, and sadness are not the enemies of kindness. They are signals. They tell you when a boundary is being crossed. If you listen to them, they act as guides toward a more balanced life. For many, kindness has been a lifelong mask, but masks are heavy, and the longer you wear them, the more you forget your own face. The journey ahead is not about abandoning kindness. It is about removing the mask so that kindness can flow from the real times the you that can say yes and no with equal honesty. There is an old saying, if you want to know who you truly are, look at how you treat yourself when no one is watching. That is where authentic kindness begins. It is found in the quiet choices you make for your own well-being. Do you rest when you are tired? Do you offer yourself the same compassion you extend to others? The irony is that when you treat yourself with genuine kindness, your capacity to care for others becomes more powerful, not less. It comes from an overflow of energy, not a depletion of it. It inspires others to rise with you, rather than lean on you until you collapse. The dark side of kindness is not kindness itself, it is the distortion of it. It is about transforming your behavior from a mask into a mirror, from compulsion into choice, and from survival into love. The next time someone tells you how kind you are, pause. Ask yourself, is this coming from fear or freedom? Is it born of exhaustion or abundance? The monster within kind people is not their anger or their limits, it is their self-neglect. Once you face that, once you set down the mask, you will discover that your kindness doesn't disappear. Instead, it grows stronger, sharper, and more radiant. That is the ultimate kindness, to live fully as yourself without erasing, performing, or apologizing. To show the world that compassion does not mean the erasure of the self, it means the expression of the truth. That is the kind of kindness the world needs most, not endless yeses or silent suffering, but the courage to love others without losing yourself.